It is Wednesday, April the 2nd, 2025. I'm Dr. Grantham Taylor Hughes from my show, The Grantham Taylor Hughes Show, with my guest host, Lena Suzanne. Hi, Lena. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Grantham. How are you?
I'm just fine.
Good.
I wore the same shirt today, too.
And me too.
Well, there you go. How about that one? Well, because it's okay to wear a shirt twice in a row. You don't have to have it always clean. And I think dirt's good for you anyway. Dirt pancakes, right? Get
Mhm.
some dirt out of the garden and then make it into pancakes. Isn't that what flour is? But you got to have a little baking soda in it. Years ago, I was making these pancakes for a girlfriend, and and she's trying to cut it. And it was really hard. She said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, isn't that flour and water?" I said, "Yeah, you can throw it against the wall and make paste, make a plaster out of it, but you can't eat it. They were like rocks." So I call them cement pancakes, right? And
Yeah.
put a little butter on it and some syrup on it, and then you serve it. But you can't cut it with the knife and fork because they're cement, right? You can patch the wall with this. That hole in that wall there, you can take my pancake and fix the wall.
I think pancakes have egg in them as well, don't they?
We have to have baking powder. I found out later on. You make it so it's not like rock hard. Make it fluffy, right? So you can eat it, right? You can't eat cement pancakes. I'm eating cement today. Made by Grantham Taylor Hughes cement pancakes. You heard it here first.
So, Grantham, today there's a couple of things that you're going to talk about. One is the periodic table, and then you're going to tell us about relostatics.
Okay, that's good. Periodic table of chemistry, one of my pet peeves, and mainly because the very first element, and this is not going to get really that complex, but it might be. But anyway, the hydrogen atom, supposedly by Hoyle, like science, they claim it only has two elements. It has an electron and a proton. So in my very first class, when I was knee high to a bullfrog, and in chemistry class when I was a child, I raised my hand and said, "Well, how do they stay together if you only have two elements? I mean, don't they just fly apart?" And then they ignored the question completely. They went on to another question. Because in reality, which I have to get to the laboratory in my institute, the Omnivergence Institute, and prove that there's a neutron in the first element of hydrogen. But if you look to any encyclopedia or any science books, you'll see that hydrogen only has two elements. It has one electron and one proton, and there's no neutron at that point. They introduced the neutron when they sped it up in cyclotrons, and it became radioactive hydrogen or heavy hydrogen when the neutron was introduced by accelerating it in the linear accelerator in California. It was a mile-long accelerator. At that time, it was just one line. It wasn't a cyclotron. Wasn't spinning. They later came up with the cyclotron in terms of the speed of light and what have you. Not really the speed of light. They say approaching speed of light, but it is really the speed of light. Anyway, so getting back to the table, the hydrogen atom is the foundation of all the elements. There's 118 elements, but after uranium 95, which was what used in nuclear fission back in the day, that was the last natural element. After that, they're all accelerated elements in a cyclotron. So the next 22 noble gases, they're called, are machine-made elements. They're not naturally made elements. Now, your orthodox physicists will argue that point with me and say, well, we're studying nature. No, you're not studying nature because you have this big, gigantic machine. There's several cyclotrons around the world. And the main one is CERN, Switzerland. They have a 26-kilometer donut that they accelerate and make new elements with that. The last one's Ohnemann 118 is in the periodic table of chemistry, but those 22 elements past uranium 95 only lasts a zeptosecond, which would be a novillionth of a nanosecond. You see, so it's really like instantaneous in time that the entire 22 gases last in terms of the nuclear half-life. It just disappears immediately. You got to appreciate how ridiculous that is when they're studying invisibility.
So,
Now, yes, go ahead, please.
did you say it was the last 22 that are man-made? So, So those 22 don't exist in nature at all.
No, they don't. They only exist in a cyclotron for a nanosecond. If a zeptosecond. A zeptosecond is a no billionth of a nanosecond.
Mhm.
So they last a zeptosecond, right?
So what's it, why are they making them and what?
Because it's money, my dear. You know what I mean? The medium of exchange is big money in the government grants to create the cyclotron. These people get paid tons of money to create these silly elements that have no value whatsoever. They claim they have value, but how can they have value if they only last a zeptosecond? It's ridiculous. It's absolutely absurd, but they're going to do it anyway, just because Grantham Taylor Hughes is condemning the noble gases. Well, yeah, because they should be condemned. They're ridiculous. I mean, but they'll do it anyway because they make all this money on the whole thing. It's a big money maker. It's like pharmaceuticals. They're not going to go away anytime soon because all you have to do is make a hydrate. You don't need to use the powders. But just because I'm saying it doesn't mean that the pharmaceutical companies that probably make quadrillions are going to step down tomorrow. Just like they make billions and trillions and gadzooks the money that they make in reference to all these sciences and what have you. So they're not going to stand down just because I'm giving these commentaries, but the truth be known, I'm giving you people knowledge of the way things are. I mean, we can laud these people and praise them and whatever, the scientists, and give them Nobel Prizes and everything. That's fine. But what value is it when two-thirds of the world is starving to death? 66 and two-thirds of the world is starving to death. We have about 9 billion people we'll go with the 8 billion. It's easier to sort out. We have 2 billion they're properly fed, and we have 6 billion people who are starving to death. That's no good. We're not targeting humanity to feed them. We're into making tons of money. But it's okay because what do I talk about in my videos? Well, I talk about the fact that everybody can create an empire. You can create as much money as you want and get all the toys. But by me instituting and talking about, I'm not really instituting it. I'm atavistically representing the fact of the Sri Yantra. The Yantra will help people reduce starvation rate down to about 5% within the next decade or two. If people will do that, utilize it, see?
But Grantham, a lot of these people who are living in poverty and who are starving, the 6 billion that you mentioned, they probably won't have access to your information. Um,
Well, but the ones that do have that can spread and teach other people. Plus, there's an entity, member parts per million. It will spread out and change things. Just like we're talking about the golden age coming up, that's a happening too. And the funny, ironic thing is, a cell phone is causing that. You got 10,000 sons of power focused on a cell phone. That's going to shift it into the dome of light because all the attention is drawn into a bindu, like a circle in the middle. And what's the best you can do exoterically is create a golden age. So that's what's coming up here because we think about all the entrants that are getting into the cell phone every single day. Thousands and thousands of people are getting on the cell phone. Right now, we got 80% of the entire Earth's population on the cell phone. So you're talking about 6.4 billion people on the cell phone. You see what I mean? So, and in China, they have 1.5 billion people as a population. 1 billion are on the cell phone. So you see, I used to call it phone plague, but now I call it very important phone practice because it's going to cause a golden age with all the attention on the phone. Because you go out into the street, you're going to see everybody's on the cell phone. Isn't that wild? Everybody's on the phone. Isn't that interesting? Did you ever think about that in reference to what do you think about that?
well, I remember the time when there were no mobile phones, and actually life was simpler. uh, we didn't know what we were missing, but now yeah, we're all on our phones now. I know I am a lot.
Yeah, me too. I use it all the time as well. So we're all part of that, but I don't call it the plague anymore. I call it practice. I changed my concept of it because I realized how important it really was to shift the entire era from a Kali Yuga to a Satya Yuga. That's coming up too shortly, probably within a year or two. It's just going to be a happening, but we're explaining the happening. where the sun becomes a dome in the sky of light. It was like that Mother Goose rhyme of Chicken Little. The sky is falling, the sky is falling. It's going to hit me on the head because the sun is a dome of light. You think the sun's imploding on Earth, but it's not. It's just a portal opening up. That's the spindle of necessity by Plato. And that paradigmic shift will take place too in terms of the Platonic paradigm. See, so that's important because Plato was a master of sorts, so to speak, in terms of his teaching back in Cronus and Metapoponia, back in the day in the Greek studies back in those days. And so it's very important that we bring in the Platonic paradigm and also talk about this periodic table of chemistry correctly by instituting the neutron in the first element of hydrogen right out of the gate instead of not having it there. That's important. It's a it's a structural methodology, and when we analyze these things, it's in the entity. The proper entity be known, the truth be known is what we're talking about here. It's not like other people don't have the truth, but I still think there's a lot of things that are missing in reference to what we're offering here today. Yeah, the neutron is like the glue that holds the positive and negative together. Otherwise, the negative and positive just spin off into the ozone. You have to have something that you have to have a triad. You have to have at least three to coordinate. Any coordinates has three coordinates to get to the center. You see what I mean? So you have to connect the atoms. You have the molecules. You have the electron and proton have to stick together in order to make manifestation. Like everything around us, about 90% of everything is made out of hydrogen, but then I'm saying it's really 100% water. So hydrogen is really water too, because it's all elements of a water droplet. So this is all connected, by the way. There is a proper sequidorism, a sequence that we're talking about here. It's all connected. It's like the genetics is really just these atoms and what have you, but it's just a water droplet. Remember, we're always saying we're sitting in a water droplet. I'm in a water droplet. You're in a water droplet too, or individual water droplet. We call it MDC, a Macy dust concept. So we're in the middle of a water droplet, which is in the middle of the gene. So that's why it's a DNA universe. The deoxyribose nucleic acid, we're in a DNA universe that spirals up to the sun. This is all very easy, everybody. This isn't complex. Maybe the first time through it might be dizzyingly complex, but we'll repeat these things and you're going to see how easy, I always call easy peasy, right? Because nothing complex. We don't do anything that's complex. There may be a lot of data, a lot of information, but just repeat it. Repeat these videos. That's why we're doing the videos, so you can repeat it and go back into it and then gain some enlightenment with the whole thing, or gain knowledge. Enlightenment gets too esoteric, but gaining knowledge is what we seek. Everybody seeks knowledge. The knowledge within you is within me, and we're talking about this knowledge. It's very important. He said,
Right, let's, for the last 15 minutes, let's hear about what you're going to be doing at the Omnivergence Institute and talk about your fuelless technology. Your
okay, well, omnivergence is, we've talked a little bit about divergence and convergence with seeing with your eyes, because we're in a two worlds, a superimposed world that we're in right now. And the two worlds that are upon each other, because we want to be in one world and not two worlds, because then they call that a psychic break, psychotic break, because when you dualistic type occurrence takes place. So the one world we're in is a balance between the two, or actually an easier way to negotiate where you are and the convergence that we're in. Remember, we talked about in one of the previous videos about that bond that we get with our parents when we're born. Well, the bonding really is a first convergence of the child that has two eyes when it's born. It comes from a divergent world, and then it's in a convergent bonding that takes place. So that's what bonding means, is your eyes are converging into one world that we're in. It's superimposed two worlds upon each other. So the omnivergence is that practice of divergence and convergence to be in convergence. But what we're trying to experiment with in the institute and doing the research is with the divergence practice of moving in space. It would be a dynamic vehicular travel or biological motion without using vehicular travel, but it would just be a dynamic, the skill to be able to move without, with your eyes, moving with your eyes, the divergence convergence routine. Remember, I had talked about two gentlemen that I had met that were on ends of the earth. One was an East Indian and one was an American. And they both had an experience with divergence of closing their eyes in an emergency situation. And when they opened their eyes, they were about 100 yards in front of themselves and they actually didn't physically move. So they just move with their eyesight. So that's the omnivergence, when divergence and convergence. So that will be researched at the Omnivergence Institute, obviously, because I got the omnivergence from Buckminster Fuller's book, The Critical Path. He used omni for everything. Every other word was omni this and omni that. So I combined the convergence and divergence and called it omnivergence. So that will be the main study of omnivergence in terms of this movement. But at the same time, the Institute will be studying light speed because nobody's studying light speed because they don't understand it like I understand it. And that's part of the relostatics that we'll be studying too at the Institute.
What
Nobody's studying that. Yeah, go ahead, please.
what is relostatics? Does it exist already?
It's static energy to motive power. Like you have static energy around you right now. The energy that's around you, that we isolate it and utilize it for motive power. That's how simple it is. In terms of the little movie Back to the Future, they call it the flux capacitor. That's a good phrase to use. It is a capacitor. So we actually just recently we call it the flux capacitor. But the flux capacitor in the movie had to have fuel put into it. This is fuelless, has no fuel. It's beyond electric cars, and electric cars are ridiculous anyway, because they're still using oilicity, oil electricity. If you go to a power plant, they have oil burners that run that electric power plant. So I coined the word, there's one of my neologisms, oilicity, not electricity, like oilicity. Right. So the relostatic machine that we'll be researching at Toy is fuelless. It has no fuels, no wires, it has no sound. Electric cars make this bzzz noise. They have a Formula One race with electric cars. They sound like bees on the road going bzzz. They're really awful. Anyway, the relostatic car will be soundless. It has no sound to it. See, I can talk about this, and people will say, "Well, if you give out this information, won't somebody create it and not you?" No, because they don't know it like I do. That'd be lovely if somebody did it. I don't want. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do any work. I'm lazy.
There's no fuel. Explain more to me because I can't get my head around how it works.
How it works. I know it's just hard to. Well, I was at this RV, recreation vehicle home show a few weeks ago, and one of the big RVs was being uh, uh, chauffeured or what attached to a big a semi truck cab, right? Anyway, so they had the bonnet opened up on the motor, and I was standing next to the motor. It was as tall as I am or bigger. It was actually and it just is all this paraphernalia and nonsense in the motor, and it was red color. It was really awful looking, but there's so much junk inside of there. The salesman came up behind me and said, "Can I help you?" And I pointed to the motor and said, "Look at that mess!" Like that. We said, "What do you mean?" I said, "That's ridiculous. All the companies that create the grommets and the screws and all the stuff that go into making the motor, the housing and the metal and everything. You can imagine how many companies are creating this gigantic piece of nonsense." And I said, what needs to be done is get rid of that big mess and then put a silicon bullet in there, like a silicon glass crystal in there, a flexible glass crystal about the same height as the motor, but it's real simple. It isn't like a smooth, it looks like a bullet, okay? And that would be your flux capacitor and the relationship with the pilot. And so what do? You have that, that's your motor is the capacitor, flux capacitor in the same place where the motor is. Really simple, right? And you get into the automobile, and then you have a light panel in front of you that moves your hand over the light panel, like in the original day the Earth stood still, and it's a pilot's interaction with that diode. It's real simple. Take me to Saudi Arabia. Boom, right away you go there in exponential light speed. See, nobody has this because it's mine. I have it now. The original Nikola Tesla had this back in 1906, but he didn't get a chance to reveal it because they pulled the plug on his funding. So now I've resurrected all that and bringing this all back. So it's going to be a very exciting time. I wish I did. I wish somebody would run with this because I don't really want to do it. But I got to get real young looking, and I got to look like I'm 25 within about 5 years. I'm working on it with the Brian thing. So I think I look pretty good for my age. What do you think, everybody? I can't help myself. I'm a comedian out of work. I'm the chairman of the board of the Comedians Out of Work Club. Nobody will hire me because I slay them in the aisles.
So
And the club, yes, go ahead, please.
tell me more. You talked about the flux capacitor
Save me, Lena.
and the right. You talked about the like a bullet, this large silicon bullet. That's where the engine would be, and there's some kind of interaction between the pilot or whoever sits in the vehicle and the flux capacitor. What is that
The
interaction?
flickering lights of a computer, like you have a light panel, right? And that's a binary code. One is on, zero is off. So you've got flickering lights. The flickering lights will interact with the diode and make it move. And actually could be just a voice recognition too. That's why we got to do the research. We got to make the prototype, which is going to cost a pretty penny to do that. And that's why we're doing our videos. So people subscribe, get in here because we got to get a bunch of ad money to make Toy go. Because I try to go to my people, and the foundations are all caught up in other directions, and then I do a presentation in front of the board, and they how much money do you want this month, Grantham? And they make a big laugh. How about 5 trillion? Ah, you have a good day now, Grantham. We'll see you later next time.
Will they not give you a little bit, like a few million?
Nah, they're ready to kick me out anyway at any time.
Oh,
Well, it's okay though. I mean, they're very orthodox in terms of presentation. They can't get it. Their attention level is bad too. Like most people think I just talk on and on and on. We have no idea what he's talking about because they can't really differentiate the language. It's kind of attention deficit disorder is a big problem in the world today. So we get picked on because he talks too much. My epitaph will be, he talked too much and laughed too much. Oh, what a terrible person he was.
so what do you think is the cause of that, Grantham, that you say the attention levels got very poor? What is it about modern day society that's made it so?
Well, because they have no focus on, they don't focus their attention on things. I mean, we try to get the students to pay attention, but they're pretty much all over the place wanting to have fun. They want to goof off and not be involved with academia. You see, so my theory is I got into academia later on too, because I was a goof off in school in the beginning, making people laugh because that's the comedic side of me. I think people should be allowed to play until they decide they want to get serious about their studies. Yeah, give them the freedom to do that, see? So the attention that people have is they're not interested in academia because they didn't get finished with their play. See, and that's why their attention's all over the place because they really don't want to focus on these things that need attention. See,
Mm.
they don't do introspective techniques like the religions talk about prayer, which I really agree with, to pray or like the people in the Far East do meditation type thing. I think people need to do that to help their attention level to focus on things. That's why the yantra is very important for that. It brings your empire. You focus on the bindu. You know, the best bindu in the world is the sun, by the way. The sun is a bindu. So the bindu that we see in the yantra is just the sun. We look into that sun, and that brings everything to you, and it helps your attention level. But people have a scattered, their eyes are scattered. They're all looking around. Remember, I told you the way you look at somebody in their two pupils is a look in the forehead. That's why they call it the third eye, the pyramid. The reason why they have that is because you look in the forehead to see peripherally into the pupils because you can't see most of the time people are looking right to the left subtly in terms of if you're looking in somebody's eyes, you're not looking into two pupils at the same time because they don't know how to do that. Again, we give the tools on the how to Grantham's how-to videos. You see what I mean? So we don't really know the attention problem is because we're not focused enough, and the yantra will help that attention level. That'll help extremely in terms of how for getting people to focus. Like autistic people are just not paying attention. Have you ever seen autistic people? Their eyes are all over the place. When I talk to autistic people, I say, "It's okay, you can look at me," because they get real nervous about stuff, and they appreciate me a great deal. I was in the Army Reserve. I was a medic, and I used to work with autistic people, and they really liked me a lot because I really helped them focus on things because they want to focus their eyes. We don't do enough of that and utilization of the eyes in our creation. Anyway, so that'll be a lot of the work that we do at the toy work at the institute because it's important work that needs to be done. There's 26 divisions to the institute. So we're going to start the Neo Silicon Valley, the new Silicon Valley, pretty soon. We're on that. That's why we're doing these videos to get the revenue to do that. So help us out, everybody. I would really appreciate that. So how are we doing on time? I guess we're running down, right?
Yeah, we're a few more minutes. We're nearly there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Any more questions or you want to oraculate on something? Go right ahead.
What's going to happen to the existing Silicon Valley?
What's going to happen in Neo Silicon Valley?
No, the existing one. You're making a new one.
Well, it's been gone. They still do a little bit of what they're doing, but most of it went to Mexico after the Cold War ended. Because what they were doing in Silicon Valley, they were making weapons. It was war toys. It was mainly what they were making. And so when they still do that, NATO still has make 17 agencies. They still make weaponry because it's big money. When you make aircraft carriers and jets and all this stuff, there's a lot. It's a big enterprise of making a lot of profit. It's not really for making war, but the issue is that when you make these things, there's the potential of usage. So it's not a great thing, but they do make a lot of money with that. So the valley it got dried up from making war toys. I mean, there's a little bit of what goes on there, but most of it went down to Mexico. The truth be known, because the labor was cheaper. But that's a long drawn out thing. We can talk about that later too, because I think we're running out of time right now. What do we got left? About 30 seconds.
So
Okay.
should we finish it there for now, Grantham? Thank you very much for everything today. And thank you to the viewers for watching. Please share, like, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Bye for now.